Um, so my name is Pavel, and I'm going to be presenting today. But I want to do one thing before we start. So generally coming to user groups and meetups is quite intimidating and sometimes scary because you might not know people, like for example, like me. So maybe let's start with one thing. Can I ask everyone to just stand up? And just find two people you don't know and introduce yourself to them. Maybe the person on your left and your right. Say, hello, my name is Pavel. Nice to meet you.
Dennis.
So it's not that scary anymore. So give you a little bit more information about myself as well. So my name is Pavel. I was studying computer science at university, and my first job was a software developer. And in 2008, I came to South Africa for a visit, and I really liked it here because it's warm. And so I moved here as a software developer, got introduced to Agile and Scrum. Does anyone know what Agile Scrum is? Just put your hand up. Okay, awesome, cool. So then I became a Scrum Master, and a couple of years ago joined a consulting firm and become something called Agile Coach and Trainer. That's what I am right now. So I have my own company and I do training and coaching in Agile. A couple of months ago, I've met Rory and we had a conversation. Rory said, well, why don't you present something for our JAG user group? I was like, yeah, why not? So I had to kind of dig deep back into my brain, so how development works, but hopefully I'll still remember things. But today we're going to talk about something called Pong TDD. Test-driven development. Who does test-driven development? Does anyone actually currently do test-driven development? Okay. Who doesn't do test-driven development? Who's not listening? All right. So guys, test-driven development was introduced by Ken Beck in 1999. And it's 2016, and there's only 5 people in the room actually do that. Is it something wrong with TDD? Is it a bad practice? Is it? So why test-driven development is so hard to implement? Why is it so hard to do? Let's kind of think together. Just help us. Yeah.
I think in some languages it's a bit easier.
Yeah.
Java, because of the nature of Java, sometimes adding that type of, because normally people want to add some sort of a simple language to test-driven development, and that may make it a bit difficult.
So it's Java. And maybe the way we learn Java.
Yes.
Yeah, the way we learn Java kind of just go and write code. So easy to write code, so just go and write code first, okay? Any other reasons why we... Yeah.
I forget.
Forget. So I like it. Yeah. I'm like, no, like every morning you kind of go into the shower and it's like, today's going to be a nice day. I'm going to start writing tests first, and then you go to work and you see these people again, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to write code again. No, forget, we don't have time, right? So sometimes we are pressured for deadline, and well, we kind of need to get this out and sorted, and so that's why we write some code first. Yeah. Yeah, okay, sorry for stealing that from you. Another one.
I think that sometimes it could also be an R&D thing, is that you actually don't know what the heck you want to do. So you start off in some way, and you just want to get something out.
Yeah.
Well, that's
so when you start coding, the process of coding, you actually don't know how it's going to look at the end. You kind of, well, let me experiment a little bit. Okay, it works this way, it doesn't work this way. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, anything else?
I'd say maybe also a combination of laziness and misconception.
And by misconception, what do you mean?
Misconception maybe because you've got time constraints as well. So, I mean, if you're leading a project or you're a developer, you're not quite sure if you're going to gain time from doing test-driven development as opposed to just heading first straight into it. So you'd rather keep that aside without knowing the benefits.
Yeah, so you actually don't know if you're going to get enough benefits of doing that first. You're unsure, right? So it might work, but might not work out. It's like this thing with investments, right? So you think you're going to put money in, and hopefully in 10 years, 15 years, buy this new BMW now. Right, so very similar concept, okay? Yeah.
It's a really hard mindset change to actually start writing tests first, because a lot of us will sit there and you'll have the solution in mind.
Yes.
You'll have a very vague idea of where you want it to go.
Yeah.
But saying, let me write the test, is a lot harder to say, how do I test
Yeah.
what I'm thinking about before I actually do it?
Yeah.
It's a hard mindset to get to.
Because we're not used to that, so
No.
we kind of learned that you write tests or code first, and then you might cover them in tests. But it's a different mindset. It's hard to start and how to do that. Okay, maybe the last one. Anyone else? For people who do that, is it hard to explain it to other people or make other people do that for you? So sometimes it's hard to explain, right? So yeah.
Another point can be maybe lack of knowledge about it.
Lack of knowledge about TDD. Like, well, how do you start? Where do you start? How are you supposed to do it in the first place? What's good practice about it? Yeah. So good points. So just to recap, what's TDD? So test-driven development, or test first, is simple principle. You first need to write a test and make it red. So you just write the test and maybe enough code to compile your solution, but your test will always fail in your first attempt or first run, right? And then you need to make it green. So you write hot code to pass the test. Just enough code to pass this test. And then you refactor. Right? And then you repeat the cycle. So red, green, refactor, red, green, refactor. So it's pretty simple. Today I'll show you something to build on it, something to address some of the problems you mentioned. Things like, oh, we don't know how to do that, it's hard to explain, sometimes we forget, sometimes we don't have time. So I'm going to show you how to marry test-driven development with pair programming and make it a little bit more fun. So Pong TDD, that's how it works. You need two people, person A, person B, and then first person writes the first test. And the first test should be the most simple test you can think of, right? So this person writes the first test. Then the second person, person B, needs to write code to pass the test, to make it green now. But the condition is to write the most simplest code, right? The minimum amount of code for that. Then you refactor together, and then you swap roles. So then the person 2 writes test, and the person 1 writes code, and you refactor again. So it's kind of ping pong, right, between each other. As simple as that. Just not to go on it too much, we're going to do a demonstration, and I have my lovely assistant Rory here. So what we're going to do, we're going to take one of the quite simple but quite complex problems, is Roman numerals. You all know Roman numerals, so I'm just kind of highlighted some of the things. I is 1, 5, 10, 50, 100, and 50, and 1,000, or 500 and 1,000. So you're all comfortable with that. There are special cases. For example, for 4, you can't say I. You have to put I before V, right? So there's a special case if you want to say 4. So that right one would be IV. All right, the same as others, 9, 14, 90, 400, and 900. There's a couple of examples. This is a 6. This is the 66. Well, what's wrong with this one?
Which one is that?
The second one. Oh, so you can't have 5 of the same. So what you should be L. So what's wrong with this one? So I guess it's supposed to be 999. So you can only use this combination. So you can't use M and I, right? So how how would you write 999? So you need 900. So 900 is DM. Or CM. Sorry. CM. Then 90 would be XC. And 9 would be 1x. Okay, so that would be 999. The same with this one. You can't have things before and in front. So if it's 14, then it should be like that. Okay, so very simple rules. So Rory and I are going to try to use Pong TDD to actually code something like that. All right, ready. We promise not to take too much time. And please shout if we do something wrong. Okay. So maybe you want to show how to create. Or maybe we'll show it later. So we've created the first solution, and we'll do the first test. I don't even have a class yet. So I'm writing the first test. What would be the most simple test? One. So expected 1, and so what do I call it? Roman converter dot convert, and yeah, something like that. So it's not going to compile. I just need to create that. No. Okay, well you do that. Yeah. So that's my first test. So the first test which I create is, well, I. Right, so I is 1. So the first test we should pass. Obviously that's not passing right now. So this is my part. Rory is going to try to pass it now.
So the first of all, I want to tell you that Pavel is not a Java developer. He's got a little background in C#. When we did the first test with this, he actually caught me quite a few times, and I've been using TDD for about 10 years now. So create class, run a converter, and we're going to just have a convert there.
No, can't change it.
And what we're going to do here is we're going to do return 1.
So now I want to highlight to you how sneaky he is right now, right? So I wrote the test which says, well, assert something, assert I, and should be equal, and Rory is just writing the most minimal set of tests, or set of code, and this minimal set of code is just return 1. Let's see if you pass this test.
Yeah, I just ran it.
Oh, awesome, cool. All right. So yeah. Okay, cool. So what should be your test?
Okay, so I'm gonna write.
What you gonna refactor?
And I'm going to do a also a very simple test, but just testing that you can convert 2 numbers.
Or number 2.
Yeah, I could copy and paste though. But oh. And over to you.
All right, cool. So just maybe run
So
to see.
if you run it, it should actually.
So it's red. So we got red. So what's the minimum amount of code I can write here to pass both tests? How about S? So length.
Yeah.
No. Length.
Yeah. That's string length.
Okay. What? Yay! It works.
I think this practice we went in a practice first. Now we
So I need to write you a test, I guess, right?
Yes, you.
I'm gonna write. So I'm just so excited that I passed the test. Okay, so I'm not gonna be you. I'm gonna copy it. Copy and paste. Take some time.
Not good.
No, copy and paste is not good.
It's your bank copy.
Okay. So well, so it doesn't work for you. Lens wouldn't work for 5, right? So if I do 5, and save, it should help. Yay. Cool.
Okay. So I'll just be equally as sneaky, and I'll go. Here. S dot equals B, then return 5. Else, return the next.
Yeah.
So that's probably would be refactoring, right? So
Okay, we can refactor afterwards.
It's been a while.
all right. So how would we refactor nowadays? Well, we don't need else. We could actually delete else.
But you make the method name a lowercase as well, please.
It's really buggy.
Burning your eyes now.
So it still works.
So at the end, we'll do some more refactoring.
Come on.
Okay. So then it's my turn now.
Yeah.
And I'll do copy and pasting. And we're doing test 2 different numbers. And I want to do BI, and this should be 6 9. Great.
All right. Right. So I guess I'm not gonna be able to be any more sneaky and simple. Oops, that's wrong. So I guess I need some sort of sum, and probably I need 4
Yeah.
and what?
Semicolon.
No,
Oh, yeah, equals 0.
equals 0.
Not
Semicolon.
not colon, equals just equals.
Sorry, well I'm not
Yeah,
sure. All right, cool.
It's actually busy as Scrum Master.
Oh, sorry. So as length, more. Okay, and then. And then I say, what do I say? Char F. I equals I. One. Oh, sorry. Move. Something like that?
Yes.
What's wrong?
Return sum.
Some equals 0.
Return sum.
Initialize sum.
Sum equals 0.
green. Yeah.
Cool. And maybe the next test, I don't think we're going to go to the next test. You probably get bored by now. But the next test from me would be something like, well, you got 6, but what if you have lowercase 6? Okay. Then that could be another test. Right, so I'm just, the scary thing you've seen is us actually practicing this a couple of weeks ago, and we end up with 19 tests, all of them here, and different numbers and all the different combinations and exceptions.
But we didn't have the actual result, solution. So myself and Pavel just went through all the combinations, ping-ponging, and actually came up with the solution.
Yeah, so slowly we kind of start building on it, and the solution is here. It's got a lot of things. It's got regex, it's got some replacements for those things, and so all the different cases for different numbers, and even some
Runtime exception.
runtime exceptions. That's the best we could come up with. So the reason why we want to do that, there are multiple reasons. So the first reason, often when you find people pairing, there'll be one dominant person, another just sitting and watching, right? So this one, actually, both of us participate and both of us making it fun and trying to catch each other, right? And trying to answer.
You caught me, I didn't catch you once.
Well, you caught me as well. But the other thing, design of your code is actually based on how would people use it. We were thinking, oh, what would person type in, and what would be the case for that, and what would be the test for that. So we came up with minimalistic design. You could see that we're only trying to pass the next test, but this design was enforced by thinking of how the user would actually use that. Do you have any questions so far? Right, so the next step, I guess, would be, well, it's all nice to watch, but it's even better to practice it. So we ask you guys to bring your laptops, and your laptops should have Eclipse and should have some sort of unit testing. You'll need to find yourself a pair to play with. So if you don't have a laptop, find someone who does have. And does everyone know how to code in this room? That's probably if you don't, yeah, I guess. If you don't, and so just find another pair, and maybe observe what they're doing, or maybe even try to code. So we'll give you half an hour. Try to be as sneaky as us. Try to.
You can take a partner. So Pavel can also take a partner. I'm giving him a.
Yeah, well, if there's like odd number people, we can pair up as well. So you'll have 13 minutes, but you won't do this problem. You'll do the reverse problem. You'll need to enter the normal digit, and you need to get the Roman. So if I put 5, it should give me B, right, as a string. So in your pairs, 30 minutes. Try ping pong, see if it's fun at all, and we'll have a feedback session after that. Okay. All right. Time's up.
Just a good question.
Yeah.
What is the Roman numeral for 0 again?
0? Oh? I don't know. You can't say it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one. You can Google quickly so I can answer. There's no 0. There's no 0.
They're not mine.
Still gives the numbers.
And there are no negatives, I would assume as well.
Okay.
Maybe 0 is just the O as well. Alright, so guys, I know you want to carry on, but let's kind of finish up and close up. So, first thing I want to ask you is, how was it? What did you kind of experience? What did you feel? Did you like it? Did you dislike it?
I think it's very nice.
Yeah.
It just opens up different juices that close. You know,
Yeah.
because now it becomes more of a game than anything
So it's kind of gamification part of
Yes.
pair programming and this test-driven development together.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other comments?
Everybody's coding.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it take a lot longer to test certain piece of code if you sort of passing it back and forth between two people? And, I mean, obviously you can have much more rigorous tests, but it feels like it takes quite a lot longer to get your tests written.
There is a lot of information. Some of that information is more true than others. Usually, people say up to 50% of ahead in terms of doing it together and doing it test-driven development. But if you think long term, when you have such a good coverage of tests, of unit tests, they actually would save that time in future. Of course, initially it would take you longer, but how many tests did you end up with? How many tests did you do?
About 3.
3,
5,
5,
11.
7,
11.
11. Right, so we've done, so Rory and I, with my skill development, we've done 19 in an hour. So it gives you quite a good coverage in terms of tests. But you're right, initially you need to invest time because it takes longer, but if it's more or less long project, then you'll get this back in future because your quality is better.
Yeah, that's the thing is that code quality might not be the same. I mean, the way we structured it.
Yeah.
It's good code quality.
We don't refactor.
Yeah.
So the point is to refactor as well all the time. Every iteration you go through is a refactor. Did anyone went into that rabbit hole saying case 1, case 2, case 3, case 2? Right. So that's
then the analyst took over.
Right. Yeah. Cool. What else? Yes. Great.
Just a question. Like, what kind of environments would you apply this TDD with? Would both the programmers be there at the same venue, or could you do this separately?
So in terms of, can you do distributed?
Yeah.
So
because if it's distributed, I would assume it would be much longer.
So first of all, you need to have some sort of infrastructure which allows you to see the code changes immediately.
Okay.
Then the second, you probably need some sort of video conferencing so you can constantly communicate with each other.
Okay.
It's definitely possible, and I've heard of people doing that, but you just need to get the tooling right and communication right in order to do that. Otherwise, you need to be face to face, next to each other, sitting next to each other.
So to get the best results, you need both coding at the same time, one watching over the other and testing. Keep on evolving like that.
Because while you're writing, there might be some ideas of how to refactor it already, right? Or there might be ideas together. So because someone is watching you, helping you out. So I didn't see situations like Rory was writing something and someone else was on his cell phone, I don't know, playing Candy Crush, right? So you were kind of involved and you wanted to see what's going on, right? So that's element. So you're going to miss out on that element.
Okay.
Yeah.
What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Chicken.
My question is, do you do the unit testing first, or do you do the coding first, and then based on the classes that are in the developer already coded, you test them? So the reason why I ask again, sorry to disturb, is that, for example, Rory put in the class name and the method name.
Yeah.
The way he named it wouldn't be ideally working for you as a programmer, the way your mindset works when you start naming your own classes, you know? So you're like using the class name that he gave you, but you normally name it differently, from
So I see like different conventions. So what developers do sometimes in pairs, they'll say, so before they start, they say, we agree on that specific what do you call them? Naming conventions and specific things. What do you call it? Code guidelines for that. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a discussion within the team. Within the team, you discuss what will make sense and that kind of stuff. It's a subjective, somewhat subjective thing, right?
So if you're going to do it practically, you're most probably going to do it in your team. And if you do it in your team, there's probably already established guidelines how to write code and how to do naming conventions.
But if name is doesn't make sense to your partner, then you know something is wrong immediately. That you're doing something wrong there.
But you also can refactor together, same old. Maybe there's a better name for that.
I think stick to the name until we get to the factory.
Yeah. So, did anyone fall into trap of trying to write too much code? So you were like, so someone wrote a test for you just to pass 10, and you're like, oh, while I'm at it, I'm gonna write everything. Yeah. All right. So that's one of the things you need to be aware of, because if you're working with a junior developer, you're taking that ownership away from them. You're taking that work away from them, and learning away from them. Right. So you want to write the minimum amount of code, as we've done. Right. Return 1. You couldn't write less than that.
So in terms of when you're doing this, you work at it for like an hour and then take 10-minute breaks or what? Because I can imagine it must get a little bit frustrating.
Yeah. So it's the nature of it is pairing, and pairing is very intensive. So it depends on individuals how much they can pair. Some organizations say we can only pair, or some developers only pair 2 hours a day. The good technique is Pomodoro. It's 25 minutes, 5-minute break. But it highly depends on individual. If people are not used to pairing, if everyone's got this cubicle, the high one, and now you suddenly say, let's pair for 6 hours, you're going to exhaust this person. Yeah, so right, so you might start, an hour, right? So we tried 30 minutes right now. But I guess it's up to also discussion together. But Pomodoro is for 25 minutes, 5-minute break, if you want to do it like that. Great, yeah.
So obviously, this type of testing environment, you'd also have to modularize it, wouldn't you? I mean, you wouldn't actually try test something on a huge, large scale or a complicated scale, would you?
So that's the nature of unit tests. Unit tests only test the unit of code.
Yeah.
So they're always going to be small. You're not going to write functional tests for a big piece of code.
Okay. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, would it be wrong then to write more than one test at a time? To start off writing 10 tests? Would that not be the right approach?
So why would it be not the best option?
Well, I was just thinking what you said about giving the other guy, the junior person, a chance. If they write a test, giving the person a chance to solve it.
So you want to do it more interactively, otherwise, while I'm writing this 10 test over the next half an hour, you can go and do something else. So that the whole point is to ping-pong as much as possible. And I know it kind of feels unnatural, but even like Rory and I, just write a lot of those.
You had to slow me down.
No, I had to slow you down. But eventually we could spot new cases, and we could kind of think of different ideas. Because if you write 10 at a time, you most probably copy paste them, so I don't know, so you're probably not thinking well enough, right, compared to pairing. But if something really doesn't make sense to do ping pong, like maybe those cases, it feels like, you can do that. Well, I guess you can do that. Who am I to tell you not to do that? But the whole idea is to do as frequent as possible ping pong.
But the other, sorry, no, go on, Fred.
The other question is, how stringent is the communication between your partner? I mean, like, for example, if I do the test, and my partner is going to do a test case or a scenario just to pass it on the minimum. And let's say down the line, an hour later, we start getting into the complicated scenario. Do I have to keep quiet while observing, or can we actually communicate and share ideas? Like maybe while he's trying to work it out, I can see a solution and share that idea and bounce it back and forth.
So I think that would be more beneficial, because there's actually even a point where you should do that. That refactoring point is definitely, well, if you don't do it here, that at least at refactoring you have to kind of sit together and think of better ideas. just be mindful in enforcing your solution on someone, but saying we're going to do that in 10 test time, we're going to do that solution. Then well, that would be a little bit forceful, right?
Okay, so it's not really competitive.
There's some competitive. No, you don't want to. You're not catching someone. And you're like, oh, I'm a winner, you're the loser, right? But there's some competitiveness in terms of being smart, but it's actually beneficial for the overall solution because your solution is kind of that minimum, right? Minimal, the well-designed, kind of smart solution you're coming up with.
Okay.
Okay.
That's cool.
I just wanted to mention that part of the refactoring is actually where your collaboration comes in.
Yeah.
Because then you can actually start saying, but okay, fine, you know, how would we refactor this code to make it more pretty?
Yeah.
I mean, if you start coming up with a whole bunch of if statements and a whole bunch of cases and those kind of things, somebody has to come up and say, but you know what, this defeats the object.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's exactly the point. The refactoring, if you went to that scenario of trying to just game the game, then refactoring should be that stopper to say, well, no, you need to do it properly, like you need to write code properly. But also don't try to write too much code, because I've seen sometimes people do Pong TDD and then one person writes for half an hour because one person thinks of all the different cases. You only need to pass the next test.
But I think at some point in time, I mean, as you go through each test, you know, a pattern evolves. So that pattern says that, you know what, we need to think about these different things, and at some point in time you're going to say, but you know what, let's take 5 minutes out, spend half an hour, design this thing, and then carry on. You see, that's where sort of...
If something is that complex, right, because this one was simplistic. If it's a real system, and it's quite a complicated system, you might need to spend time to actually start designing something. But you definitely don't want to, you want to design for the next test, you don't want to design for the next 100 tests. Because that refactoring comes later, so where you actually improve it. Yeah.
One point I can actually mention also, what I've noticed, it helps the aid of bringing the concepts of extreme programming. Then you'll know that it's not about having to catch someone. You sometimes as a developer, there are cases that you actually miss. And as you do it, you actually realize that, okay, I didn't actually catch him, but I'm pointing something maybe you might miss out. So it's things like that.
Yeah. But I definitely enjoy catching Rory. Alright, so what's the time now? So I think we need to take the last one.
See, sometimes I find it more time consuming. Like I work in an MVC environment.
Yes.
You have to write unit tests for your controllers.
Yeah.
You have to write unit tests for your repositories.
Yeah.
Same applies to the meta. Sometimes it's more time consuming.
Yeah.
And sometimes some guys I work with, they kind of omit writing these method testing.
Yeah.
So what do you advise in such scenarios?
So I wanted to show you something which makes writing tests more fun. Because often what we do is, we're going to write tests for the next 4 hours, and we're going to write 40 tests. And then of course it's time consuming and it's draining, because like, I need to think of all the tests. Where this one is you mix coding and testing together. So it's kind of, so some people end up with 11 tests just in half an hour, and it was quite fun for them. So they didn't feel like, did you feel like...
energizing,
yeah, was it more energizing, or was it like,
No, I was worrying there's some difficult ones.
So it's just an attempt, so I was just showing an attempt to make it more fun to write tests, because otherwise writing tests can be quite hectic and can be kind of, do I really need it, or can I just maybe code and go home? Yeah. So, but it's always, I'm not saying you have to do this thing, and I'm not saying you have to do TDD, I'm just showing you the different options, and if you like them, then you can use them. Okay, the last question from the lady.
Just out of interest,
Yeah.
with regards to doing TDD, have you tried mob programming before?
Say it again?
Mob programming.
Mocking, like in terms of
Mob.
I don't know what it is. What's that?
That's where they've got a screen like this.
Yeah.
And there's like 10 people sitting there coding.
I know what it is. I haven't tried it. I was out of development by then. Yeah, no, but I've heard of it. So people having big screens and actually coding in a big screen, and other developers can see it and can comment on that. It can also. I think the point of this is not to get one technique and start using it for the rest of your life. I think it's the richness of knowing all the different techniques of coding, which can make it more fun for you and for your team members, and you can, you know, help them out to become better developers. And I think on this question we're gonna finish, and there are some presents, and I didn't give them out. We were too many.
Ask them questions.
But I asked them questions.
Yeah, you
and they answer. I don't know. So I don't know
How many
how to
presents are
decide. So we have four presents.
First 4 people who asked questions.
Who were the first 4 people to ask questions?
Thank you, remember! You've got the highest test number.
Correct on the system.
Yeah, be honest.
Yeah, who got the highest tests? That's a good idea.
Oh, who got the highest test? You got 11? Anyone got higher?
What 5?
5? 6?
6?
6?
11.
11. Do we need to verify?
No. Let me have some tests now.
So,
Oh,
the 6? Well,
Feeling higher than 6?
from you to you, I guess.
Higher than 6, alright. Like there's 2 there.
So can I?
There.
So you've got 6. So we've got 2 different. All right.
I want to
6. Okay.
There is us. There you go. You can take this.
Thank you very much for coming. I hope you had fun. And there's some information, like contact details if you want to ask me any questions. And there's a tiny URL for the solution if you want to have another look at that. Right.